I want to show gamers specifically that you can live a healthy life while still enjoying the video games and all the other hobbies that you love. But I graduated with my master's degree in exercise physiology at 265 pounds as an extremely overweight personal trainer. A lot of compounding factors just really caused me to become an NPC in my own life. I felt like I did not have control over who I was.
How did you find the light at the end of the tunnel?
It was ultimately the pandemic. You're focusing too much on the wrong things. We're changing the universe so you can focus on the right things. And that's ultimately what happened. I lost that 45 pounds. I started to really take ownership of who I am.
Can you talk about the current health problem?
Over 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. I'm going to improve as many people's lives as I possibly can.
It was an interesting read on your article, the eating healthy in fast food restaurants.
It's all about moving the needle to
become the main character of your life is Jordan Yaklin's motto when it comes to his work on improving the well-being of gamers who might be suffering from health issues and motivation. Having struggled with weight and health problems himself, Jordan managed to turn his life around and now wants to raise awareness for issues like obesity, lack of sleep, and lack of exercise in the gaming culture. Having helped over 350 clients, Jordan shares his knowledge about how you can improve your life while still eating what you enjoy, about how you can introduce exercise into your life without going to the gym or even without breaking a sweat, and generally how to improve your life whilst doing the things that you still love to do. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. It is a pleasure to have you. And I'm really interested actually to talk to you because, of the connection with sports and gaming. And I, have a lot of experience in both, as we have, talked about when we connected prior. So you're obviously on a noble pursuit to help others become, as you say, the main character in their lives. But I want to start off our conversation by asking how you made yourself the main character of your life. So what is the story behind your mission and your vision today?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So first, thank you for having me on. I'm really appreciate it. I'm excited to do this and starting off strong with a good question. I like that.
Thank you.
Very similar to you, I started sports at a very young age. I played baseball and stuff early on, but that wasn't really where I was feeling my passion, my calling, so to speak. It was started in 7th grade when I started football, to when I felt like, okay, I can actually become something of an athlete, whatever a 7th grader can be. I started hitting the weights in 7th grade, started to really feel like I was, and also hitting puberty at that point, so that didn't hurt. But I was also starting to really feel like, I'm becoming myself. I'm becoming an adult. I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be. I'm getting stronger. I'm feeling it in the gym. It's translating to the sports, to the football field. And that carried all throughout high school. And I played high school football. Wasn't good enough to play college football, nor did I really want to. I could have walked on a couple places, but I didn't want to pay to play. And so I have had a sports background to an extent, right? High school athlete. Most people fit that build. And so flash forward about 8 years, about 7 years. I'm in the middle of my master's program, master's in exercise physiology. That behind me, if you can see me. And
yeah, I see.
Good. I had a really bad semester. We had a really, really tough class, and the professor did a horrible job creating the class. And she actually had both feet out the door because she was moving at the end of the semester anyway. And this was the first semester this class was offered because the master's program was changing from a MA to an MS. That might not mean anything, but it required a full restructuring of the program. And we were the guinea pig cohort of all that. And so,
oh man.
Yeah. And so a lot of burnout, a lot of stress. I'm in a master's program that I felt, honestly, I was underprepared for to begin with, on top of an extremely hard class that was borderline like PhD level, but to a master's level class. And so all of us, even it was biomechanics, even the biomechanics students were who are the graduate assistants for the undergrad classes, were like, we have no idea what the hell is going on here. And so,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So a lot of stress, a lot of chaos on top of what I'm calling a dirty bulk, where I wanted to see how strong I could get, and I used
Yeah.
fast food to fuel that. I gained in that semester, which is about 6 months. I gained about 35 pounds, and
Wow.
so yeah, so I was averaging about 5 pounds a week, or I'm sorry, 5 pounds a month, 5 pounds a month, and so my whole grad school program, I gained about 45 pounds, and so 35 of that was really in one semester, and so the last 40 year, I'm graduating. It was actually May the 4th, 2019. So Star Wars Day of 2019, which was
Okay, cool.
five. Yeah. So my 5 year anniversary, if you will, was a couple days ago of when I graduated.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I graduated with my master's degree in exercise physiology at 265 pounds as an extremely overweight personal trainer, essentially. And so I felt like I did not have control over who I was. I felt like just this mental fog that kind of loomed over me for like that whole year. And then it was really hard for me to find a job after graduation. I got a part-time job at a YMCA, a local gym, for a minimum wage. And so I graduated with an advanced degree to get a part-time minimum wage job. So a lot of compounding factors just really caused me to become an NPC in my own life. And
Right.
that lasted about 2 years. And then the pandemic happened roughly a year after I graduated, and kind of really opened up. It closed a lot of doors, right? But it also opened up a lot of opportunities that I didn't quite see. And so I decided to travel the online coaching route and see what they had to offer. And within that journey, I kind of found out that, or I lost weight. I lost like 45 pounds. I lost that 45 pounds. Started to really take ownership of who I am and what I call like reclaim my health. And within that journey, I finally realized that I have been an NPC in this whole time, because it's when you're in it, you don't really know. You're just kind of shambling. I would use, and I'm not exaggerating, I would use like every spare second I had of mental energy, I would just focus on D&D. And so,
Right.
hold on 1 second. And so I would escape into this fantasy world. I was building a campaign, and I still love D&D and I still play it, but like if I were watching a movie, chances are I probably weren't paying attention to it. I was probably focusing on what was going on in my campaign, what we're going to do next session, world building, and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, like I said, and I'm not exaggerating, every spare second of time, every spare neuron that I had for mental energy was all going towards
Yeah.
escaping the real world into a fantasy world. And I kind of found that realization after I started losing weight and becoming healthier during the pandemic, where I was an NPC this whole time, and now I'm finally reclaiming that main character status. And so that was, a not so TLDR of my own journey. And so I got an online coaching. Like I said, I have all academia. I've been focusing on health and fitness, exercise science, and I wanted to kind of blend my two passions. So I had health and fitness, right? And then I've been playing video games since quite literally 3 years old. And so I've been a nerd
Right.
kind of before anything. And so I wanted to blend these two passions, and I wasn't sure how. And so this bookshelf behind me was actually in our bedroom at our prior place. And I'm looking at it, and I know there's some stuff covering it. So there's D&D books on the top shelf. This is a shelf of fantasy novels behind these books. And then these two bottom rows are boring health and fitness, health professional books. And
Got
so
it.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, how can I blend these two? And quite literally, I was like, well, dumbass, why don't you just actually blend the two and start working on improving the health and fitness of people, of gamers who, tabletop gamers specifically, and trying to get them to reclaim their health. Because and I'm sure you see this as well, because you're in both communities. There's a large chasm between gamers and the health and fitness community. And so the health and
Definitely.
fitness community really panders to itself, right? You got your shirtless influencer doing all sorts of weird stuff on
Right.
social media, and they say
Yeah.
you need to do, backflips off a Bosu ball while carrying 50-pound dumbbells in order to look like me. And then somebody on the outside, they're like, that's insane. I'm never going to look like that. I don't have 4 hours a day to spend
Right.
in the gym. And then they're like, well, I might as well not do anything. I'm just stuck the way I am. And I call that the pit of despair. Like, right. They're just accepting their fate as being an NPC for the rest of their life. And ultimately leads to an early demise, early 50s, late 50s, you start having those heart problems, and all preventable issues. I think 8 out of the 10 leading causes of death in America, at least, are preventable. They're like health, like obesity related. And so, um, this is kind of a longer rant, but I,
No, no, it's okay.
yeah. And so I saw that. I saw that division. Everybody, I'm sure, who definitely who games with friends. Like I lean more towards the tabletop side of things, but it happens with
Yeah.
video games as well, where you're chilling with your buddies and you order a pizza and you got chips and you got you got your Coke, and then they're having trouble
Yeah.
breathing they're just sitting there and they're breathing loudly, and you're like, what the hell? And
Oh,
so,
goodness.
yeah. And so I wanted to be that bridge to say, you can enjoy your games. Absolutely, 100%. They're awesome outlet for creativity and everything like that. Like, you should not sacrifice those, but you can also live a healthy life in a balanced way and kind of pull yourself out of that NPC status and reclaim that main character status that you should be. And you can do it in a balanced, sustainable, healthy way. That's not what you're seeing the shirtless influencer doing, who's more than likely doctoring their photos and taking performance enhancing
Oh,
drugs.
for sure. That's exactly actually what I wanted to say, just for anybody listening and who, has a certain notion of these influencers. 9 times out of 10, they're taking, certain drugs, let's say, that are even worse for their health than perhaps fast food and whatnot. And as you said, they're probably manipulating their photos in certain ways. And many times, and perhaps you might agree with me, the life of these influencers that you see on social media does not reflect the real life. They
Yeah.
might be having worse problems than yourself. So that's a great thing that you're saying, to not necessarily look at what these bodybuilding whatever influencers are doing. Of course, there's some great ones out there. I'm not going to exclude that,
Mhm.
but just be mindful and cautious of that. That's for sure. But I would just like to go back a little bit to when you started, doing sports. You started doing it at a very young age, in your early teens, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So talk to me about that. How was it like to, first of all, enter the gym at such a young age, where you had guys of different ages, with different physiques, and how did you motivate yourself to do that at such a young age, not only to motivate but also to kind of stay consistent, in whatever time that you actually did it for?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good question. Like I said, I started football. So that was kind of the call to action, I guess, if you will, to put it in gaming terms, story terms. That was my reason for lifting weights. And I was pretty lucky where I had a buddy who was hitting the weights a little bit earlier than me. And he kind of dragged me along because his dad got him hitting the weights, and he was taking, this is how ignorant we were. His dad would have him take like protein shakes. And so we were all joking around that
Okay.
he was on steroids because he was taking a protein shake. Uh, so again, we're seventh grade kids, right?
Right, of course.
And so this kid was, he's much shorter than me, and he still is. We're still friends today, and he's much stockier than me, so he was able to push some mad weight. And so when I'm struggling to push like 135, he's trying to hit 185 pounds.
Okay.
And so
Yeah,
I was kind of using that as motivation. Like, I'm trying to catch up to him. But then when we
I
do like
see.
sprint stuff, I'd beat him because I have a much longer stride than him. And
Right.
so we had a good kind of yin and yang. And we would go to the gym. We were in middle school at that time, and our high school was a short walk away. So we would just walk. It was like literally next door. So we would just walk to the gym or to the high school. And the weight room was kind of the stadiums for the basketball court. They had a loft behind it, so the stadium's retracted, which is pretty common, but behind that they had a loft, and on that loft was literally a fenced in, like a chain link fence, small area that had like old iron weights, and it had like a few machines. And so that was our first gym. And we
Oh, that's cool.
had a random teacher, tended to be a football player, would work out, would oversee it, and he'd help coach. And so here we are at seventh grade, working out with high schoolers, and they're talking about squatting like 300 pounds, and I'm like, holy crap, like stuff that's not even fathomable for me right at this
Right,
time.
right,
And they had like a Hall of Fame type of, like a record board, where like
right.
weight classes, they would have names. Oh, this person benched 225 pounds. And you're like, that's insane. That's like over double what I'm benching. And so it was nice because I saw that as aspirations. to like, this is where I can be, this is what I can achieve. And there's the, I really like lifting weights because it's you under the bar, nothing else, right? Like with
Right.
football, there's 21 other people on the field. And so there you can say, oh, this person let the guy through. He came through. He made the tackle. It's all them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
And so even with a sport like you mentioned you do jujitsu,
Yeah.
you can put stock, you can put emphasis on the other guy, right? Your opponent. Like, okay,
Yeah.
well, he had a bad day. And so I was able to beat him. Or
Yeah.
he
Or
was,
vice versa.
yeah, like he was really good and he was able to, he was just on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're under the bar, it's you. You can't say, oh, the
Right.
weight, the weight had a bad day, or the weight, the weight had a really good
Yeah.
day today. It's you. You're under the bar. It's you. No, nobody else. And so I really like that because it's, like I said, it's a make or break moment, and you also see the physical changes of what's going on. Also hitting puberty at that time, so that doesn't hurt. Seeing changes, filling out, arms are getting bigger, which every guy wants, and chest is getting bigger. Weights are going up, improving strength, and so that ultimately, that seeing progress was my best motivator to kind of keep me going. Well, really now, right, all the way through now, and that's ultimately what kept me going. And even through other sports, like football, track and field, stuff like that, I always really valued my time in the weight room, when a lot of people saw that as just one more step to get back onto the practice field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I can really relate to that. Just to add to your point, in terms of motivation, when I was in studying in university, I had a little bit more time than I do now, and I spent a lot more time in the gym lifting weights to prepare for competition.
Mhm.
And what really motivated me was, so first of all, others noticed a difference in my body. So my parents looked at me and be like, "This is you're looking a bit better than before." And then when I went to compete, my coaches were like, "You're looking a bit stronger." And that was the first kind of a notion for me where I understood that, actually going to the gym and staying consistent over a certain period of time
Mhm.
really, gets work done and gets you results. And then, of course, I paid attention and I looked at my body and I saw the differences and whatnot. But the first thing was certain, recognition from others, which really motivate. And I think that's definitely a motivator for, for everybody probably. But
Mhm.
it's the thing about, I believe, like you need to dedicate a little bit of time, right? You can't just go in there 1 week. That's not enough. You need to dedicate a little bit of time. It's different for everybody, but if you kind of stick to it for a couple of months, perhaps, maybe you might agree, then you might see a certain difference. Of course, there's a diet and everything. We're going to get into all those things, but definitely also the time is quite an important factor. Um, and just again to revert back to what you said regarding your, well, I would say, if it's safe for me to say, you're at a certain point in your life, the obsession that you had for D&D,
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's
right?
still
It would be
there, but on
okay.
a smaller scale.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's definitely fantastic. I'm calling it an obsession because at that point, it was something that was preventing you from progressing, right?
Mhm.
It was
Yeah.
not really, something necessarily beneficial for you. Although it's not a bad hobby to have, right? There's much worse hobbies to have than D&D. Um, so you were trapped mentally, let's say, in this absolutely fascinating world of D&D, and as you said, every second of your time was just mentally wasted, as you said, thinking about your next move and about the world and about the characters and whatnot. Could you talk about how did you find, for lack of a better way to say it, the light at the end of the tunnel, as to come out from that addiction in order to pursue, your current goal? So that specific moment where you told yourself, you know what, enough is enough. Let me start becoming the main character of my life right now.
Yeah. Yeah. This might be a disappointing answer, but it was
Okay.
the pandemic. So the pandemic.
Okay.
So to kind of paint the picture, like I said, it took me 6 months to find that part-time minimum wage job, right? So I was unemployed for 6 months after graduation. We had moved into a house with my girlfriend's family, or my girlfriend's friend mom had a house that they had bought for one of their kids to go to college. He had since moved, and so the house was vacant. And the mom would stay like 1 or 2 days a week for work. And so the house was largely vacant, but they still had it because she was staying there. So she said that we could move in after I graduated while we essentially got up on our feet. I jokingly called it our halfway house. And so I was living there. It took me 6 months. We both were living there. It took me 6 months to find the job at the YMCA for part-time minimum wage.
Yeah.
And so then roughly 6 months after that is when the pandemic happened. And it was late March when I got laid off. Essentially, we all did. Like, we all got laid off. And so there I am, 6 months, roughly a year after I graduated. I have been focusing so hard. This was a big moment for me, a big real revelation. For those 12 months, essentially, I've been focusing so hard on the grass is greener on the other side. I was focusing so hard on getting a different job, moving out of this house, which the house was fine, but it wasn't in the best area. Just focusing so hard on finding that grass on the other side that I didn't really take a step to appreciate where I was. And a part of that,
Got
again,
it.
was that NPC mindset, to where I'm not going to worry about the present, because I can get that job as a high school strength coach, 3 hours away, and we can move at a very base minimal salary. And so that was essentially what I had my sights on the whole time, while all of the current moment, like I said, any extra time I was focusing on D&D. And the moment when everything got shut down and the rug got pulled out from underneath me, where I was like, okay, now in America, we got some unemployment assistance money. So finances weren't as much of a struggle. I actually got a pay bump for getting laid off.
Oh, nice.
Finances were, yeah. Finances weren't an issue anymore. I had nothing but time on my hands. And I realized that my pursuits probably were not the right pursuits. And so I wanted something that was what I called plague proof at the time, to where I could do something that I wouldn't have to worry about the pandemic again. So that, again, put me down the path of online coaching. And then, and somewhere in that time, I said, okay, again, finances are an issue. I have a lot of time on my hands. I can start reclaiming my health, so to speak, and start losing weight, which I had been struggling with. In the year post my graduation, I lost like maybe 10 pounds. And then in the summer of the pandemic, I lost roughly 40 more pounds. And so I really just tried to focus on diet. I was like, I have this time off, I'm going to utilize it. So I focused on my diet, and I played Borderlands 3 for like 10 hours a day, which wasn't exactly building my career, but I was at least improving my health. And so that was definitely the turning point, but there wasn't like
I see.
a final straw or a line in the sand that I crossed. It was ultimately the pandemic closing a lot of doors for me, to where it said, you're focusing too much on the wrong things. We're changing the universe so you can focus on the right things. And that's ultimately what
Got
happened.
it. Got it. That's interesting. It's crazy that the pandemic affected everybody negatively, obviously, but there's some certain opportunities and, as you said, doors that opened up, and it's great to hear that you managed to find your way. I want to change the trajectory a little bit and talk about the current persistent health issue that exists not only within the gaming community but also generally. So your Instagram profile reads, "I help sedentary gamers to lose weight without sacrificing the food or hobbies they love through the hero's journey." So can you talk about the current health problem that you have set out to solve for your clients?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of a two-part answer, because I've been short-winded with all my other answers. So this one, obviously, and I'm going to speak in American terms because I'm an ignorant American, right? And so,
No
and
worries whatsoever.
so in America,
Absolutely.
I believe it's like over 70% of Americans are overweight or obese. And so that alone is an epidemic. And like I mentioned earlier, I believe it's 8 out of 10 leading causes of death in America are obesity related, or has obesity as a comorbidity. Meaning, if you improve your health, get down to a healthy weight, chances are you're not going to get diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and all of that. And so those are two very massive things. And then you're also taking it a step further and looking at the financial burden that this puts on the country, to where
Hmm.
the big pharma, American healthcare is like $1 trillion industry, and it's just being
Right.
fed by these sick individuals, essentially. And so I'm not saying I'm going after big pharma and I'm going to change the world, but I can definitely say I'm going to carve my own little corner out and improve as many people as I can, and touch as many people and improve as many people's lives as I possibly can. And
Right.
so that is essentially my journey to where I want to show gamers specifically that you can live a healthy life and be the main character of your life while still enjoying the video games and tabletop games and all the other hobbies that you love. But we have to incorporate some movement because all the hobbies that we like are sedentary. And chances are we have a sedentary job. And so we just need to incorporate some movement and maybe spend less time playing video games, not 6 hours a day, maybe 4 hours a day, and focus those two extra hours on nutrition and exercise in a healthy, sustainable, noble way. I don't know if I can swear, but noble crap way.
No, absolutely fine. Perfectly
Okay,
fine.
good. And a large part of that is just weeding through the bull. A lot of people are like, carbs are bad. You need to be on keto. Plants are trying to kill you. You need to do carnivore. Seed oils now,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
I try to be very middle of the road, and I say, look, a single serving size bag of Doritos probably isn't the best choice, but it is much better than a family size bag of Doritos. And so it's all about moving the needle to being healthier. And this is kind of like the second part to my answer, which is I think a large part of that, the whole obesity epidemic as a whole, really stems from the perfectionist mindset. And what I mean
Mhm.
is kind of going back to what we were talking about by seeing the influencer saying, right now, hypothetically, I'm working a sedentary job. I eat fast food probably 6 days a week, and I snack a lot on highly processed foods like Doritos and Oreos. I need to work out 6 days a week, eat nothing but boiled chicken and steamed broccoli and rice every single day to improve my health, right? And so you can see point A to point B, there's this massive chasm.
Yeah,
And we see
radical
this a
different. Yeah.
lot, right? We see this a lot on January 1st, right? You flip your lifestyle, complete 180. Then, January 3rd comes along and you're too sore to work out. So you feel defeated.
Yeah.
You order and eat an entire large pizza to yourself. You throw your hands up in the air in just pure disgust saying, well, this isn't the right time for me. Maybe I'll give it a try
Yeah.
next Monday. Next Monday turns to 6 months down the road. You're in the summer. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh crap, maybe I should get started on my summer body in the middle of June. So that all or nothing mindset really plagues us all. And so what I'm trying to do is saying, let's say sedentary, fast food, 6 days a week, eats a lot of highly processed foods. Let's say worst case scenario, somebody that can't actually cook food. Let's say they don't even have access to a kitchen. Let's say they live in a hotel, traveling for work, whatever it
Okay.
is. They like worst case scenario, boom, they have to eat fast food. They have to eat out. You can then eat
Yeah.
lower calorie options, right? One of my favorite go-tos, and I had this just yesterday, was if you go to McDonald's, get McChicken patties without the bun, without the mayo, and without the lettuce, just the patties, right?
Okay.
A McChicken like a full McChicken at 300 calories, a McChicken patty roughly 160. So you're cutting the calories in half. They
Okay.
they are over seasoned to accommodate for the plainness of the bread. So you're getting a lot of flavor with the chicken patty, and you're getting a better protein ratio, even though it's largely fat. But you're able to enjoy the saltiness, the crunchiness of McDonald's, and you can do two McChicken patties, a large fry, and a large diet for I think it's like 900 calories versus like a
Mm-hmm.
large Big Mac meal, which will probably be like 2,500 calories. And so you're not changing your behaviors, you're changing the food options. And so that helps, kind of move the needle one tick in the right direction rather than saying you need to meal prep 4 hours a day on Sunday to eat out of a Tupperware for the rest of the week. And I personally hate that. I hate eating out of a Tupperware. I
It's
have no
difficult.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is like I said, philosophically, I want to help improve or cure, so to speak, the obesity epidemic as much as I can in a realistic way by helping clients while showing them that, and not even just clients, just people in general through Instagram and all of my other content and stuff like this podcast, show them that you can do it in a sustainable way by doing small daily bite-sized actions rather than going from 0 to 100, because you're going to get back down to 0 in like 3 days, right? Burnout quick. And that is essentially my overall philosophy.
I can really, agree to what you're saying, and especially to the fact that I think a good coach is the one that when he sees a client that has, perhaps is overweight or whatever, or who didn't do sports for a long time, um, who trains you in a certain way for the first week that you're never sore. That's really
Hmm.
difficult to find a person like that. And I think that really differentiates, because I've seen a lot of coaches and I've been through a lot of coaches. Um, and it's that specific, like you said, that step by step mindset that really differentiates. I think somebody who really understands, who went through, gaining weight and losing weight, and who knows what it feels like,
Hmm.
than somebody who's been, perhaps very athletic all his life and is trying to just fully make everyone else be as athletic as them. Right?
Yeah.
Again, not all the coaches are like that, and everybody has their philosophy, but nonetheless, you actually mentioned this. It was an interesting read in your article, the eating healthy in fast food restaurants. It's
Oh yeah.
really, I was like, what? Like, you can eat healthy there? Turns out I mean, it's not super healthy, but it's healthier than what you're
Yeah.
doing, and that's the first step to achieving, your goals, which is great. You also have a very interesting article about I think it's called sneaking physical activity into your everyday
Mhm.
life, right? Which I loved very much. Could you dive into that a little bit and tell us how we can, without necessarily exercising every day, sneak in a little bit more activity for our bodies?
Yeah. Yeah. So, as I'm sure you've heard, one of the biggest excuses that I hear about not being able to lose weight is I don't have time. Right. And so
Right.
this article really addresses that by saying, and it's like simple things like parking farther away from your job. Like, let's say, if you're going shopping, just park farther away, park at the end of the parking lot. Don't find the closest
Right.
spot. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. And let's say in that article, I said, let's say you're on the 69th floor, very childish, LOL. Um, but let's say you're on the 69th floor. I don't expect you to walk 69 floors, but like
Right.
take the elevator to like maybe the 67th floor and then walk 2 flights.
Right.
Right. And so,
Right.
and that could be something where you can physically gauge process or progress where you're like, okay, I started on the 67th. Now I'll start at 66, 65. And you could be like, I once I was taking the elevator the whole time. Then maybe I was doing 1 or 2 flights. Now I can do like 10 flights. Right. And then you can really see progress that way, and just simple things like that. And then I think I dove into, I wrote that article a while ago, but diving into stuff like Pokemon Go and LARPing. Those are more on
Yeah.
the,
Yeah. That's really cool.
yeah, those are more on like the fun side of things where you kind of do have to partition some time out for it. But somebody who like for me, I work from home, so I have a little bit more freedom for that. But I have a walking pad right here. That's what that is. I'll throw it under here. This is a sit to stand desk, so I'll raise it up, walk when I want to or when I can. I try to get outside more than not, but I have it right there. Even just standing, not actually walking, but like let's say you work from a desk and you have the ability to prop up the keyboard, like you throw it on a box, right? Just
Yeah.
standing is more muscle involvement or muscle engagement than sitting. And so again, we're not chasing that perfection, but moving the needle. And standing alone could be enough
Right.
to just improve your health, improve blood flow,
Right.
improve mental clarity. And so it's just a lot of things like that where you can just slowly sneak some things in and you don't have to do a full workout in the gym.
That's what I really like. I really like your attention to, the step by step nature of the way of the way to gaining your results. I really do, because I think it it's not going to scare anybody.
Mhm.
I think anybody who's, is reluctant to go to the gym, or who doesn't know what to do, will not be reluctant, as you said, to park a little farther away, or to, go one or two flight of stairs, and slowly but surely, incorporate a bit more exercise, maybe walking even, right? Just having a little walk. I'm not even talking about 5 or 10,000 steps, right? I'm talking
Yeah.
just a little walk to the grocery store and back, whatever, or just around your neighborhood. That's already a big deal. So those things are really really important. I think it's great. The way you're directing and trying to coach your clients in this way. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I would like to also talk a little bit about a certain social pressure, or the concept of social pressure that you that you talked about, which is connected to the food choices, and especially when it comes to, for example, your weekly D&D games, or
Mm.
for example, LAN parties, right? If we're talking about console gamers, or PC gamers. And
Mhm.
the problem arises when you have, personally, when you have a certain goal to achieve, a certain fitness goal to achieve, but you have your friends who come in, as you said, with like chips and candy and fast food and whatnot. And all of a sudden you find yourself, swaying away from your diet and kind of falling for the craving. So what can one do in those types of situations to mitigate that and to still kind of have fun, but also stay as healthy as possible?
Yeah, yeah, good question. Good question. So first, you can plan for it, right? Like if you're saying every Saturday nights for the boys, right? You're hanging out, you're having your LAN party, playing D&D, whatever it is, hanging out with your buddies. You know, food's going to be available, right? You're going to be there. Chances are you're going to get pizza, fast food, or whatever it is. Like if that's a
Yeah.
staple of your Saturday night with hanging out with your buddies, then plan for it. I would say like maybe have um, I am personally a fan of fasting, but I'm not somebody who pushes it on my clients. So I have no problem skipping a meal while still being within like the healthy food mindset. I don't do it out of punishment. I say I'm banking my calories for later, where I'm going to enjoy it more. Um,
Yeah, nice.
so there is a slight delineation there, but I would be more than fine like having a light breakfast, light being a protein bar and a protein shake. So that way I'm prioritizing protein in the morning and then skipping lunch. And then, 5 or 6 p.m. rolls around and the boys come over or the friends come over and we play games. And then maybe 7 or 8 o'clock, we start eating. I would then indulge in the entree, whatever you want to call it, whether it's fast food, pizza, whatever it is. Enjoy it, indulge in it. It's part of the whole entire ambiance. It's part of the community. It's part of the environment, and so it's part of the experience. And so enjoy that absolutely, and then keep the mindless snacking to a minimum. And I have a rule at my D&D table where we have food off the table unless we're all actually eating a meal, and so
Okay,
that
I see.
way, yeah, and so that way I'm not sitting with a bag of Doritos right next to me where I'm going to be constantly grabbing it,
Yeah.
mindlessly eating until the bag is empty. And so get rid of or limit the mindless snacking, eat more mindfully, um, bank your calories for later. And I would say prioritize protein in the beginning. That's kind of like an optional step. And then track your food. I think
Right. That
society
was.
has gotten really weird about tracking calories, saying it's a toxic diet culture. But if
Hmm.
you don't track what you're doing in some way, shape, or form, how do you know if you're making progress? And so
Right.
I'm a big fan of tracking my calories, but some clients that have number anxiety will just do a food log. And it could literally just be a like a picture library where you're just taking pictures of your
Yeah.
food. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
what I to kind of segue into that, I like tracking food because we often mindlessly eat at some point in the day. And so tracking is obviously a mindful habit by definition. And so we are then attaching a mindful habit or behavior to a mindless behavior. Therefore, it's all becoming mindless. And so if you're constantly snacking on chips, instead of like taking one or two out of the bag at a time, put some on a bowl or put some in a bowl or on a plate, take a picture of it. And then you can essentially mindlessly eat that where you're portioning it out and you're logging it. Um, so yeah, I guess that was a long way of saying budget your calories, enjoy the entree, but snack minimally and essentially track your calories and eat mindfully.
Yeah. Yeah, tracking your calories, I definitely is a very important thing. That was actually my next question, which you answered right now. And it's really, I think, I don't know if it was while I was doing research for you, or if it's probably an example in my friend's life or whatnot. But um, there's certain occasions where you're trying to lose weight, and you know what's healthy for you, and you kind of eat healthy, but then you have no progress. And then you
Yep.
kind of ask yourself your question, what's going on? Why am I not getting any progress? And the answer is, I think you pointed this out, I think in one of your videos, that it's because you're not tracking your calories. You
Yeah.
might be thinking that you're eating healthy, but as a matter of fact, you're taking as much calories as you are burning, so you're not really seeing any results. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that some people might have, as you said, number anxiety, and you mentioned food logging, right?
Mhm.
I didn't know that concept. I did it, but I didn't. I did it without knowing what it was. I just took a picture of the food for like a few months. But that's actually a really cool, different solution. So instead of actually writing the numbers down, you can just take a picture. So I think that's very, 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 very cool. Um, what I want to ask you also is about diet Coke or diet pop, right?
Mhm.
So you mentioned that a diet one or 0 calorie pop is better than the regular one. um, is that true at the end of the day, really? I mean, obviously, both of them are not as healthy for you, right? But basically, if the choice comes down to either or, the other one is better. The zero sugar one is better. Then. The
Yeah.
regular?
Yeah. Let me just
Like
say,
for real.
yeah, this conversation is sponsored by Dr. Pepper. Just kidding. Just
Okay.
kidding. So, uh, think about it like with that spectrum where we talked about good, better, best. Um, if you were to drink 3 regular cans of Coke a day, which to you might sound excessive, but for some people it's not. I know people that drink a full case a day, and
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, which is a 12 pack. And so
My goodness.
yeah,
Ooh,
so
that's a
people
lot.
drinking a dozen a day, and 3 a day. If you were to cut that out into a 0 calorie alternative, that is cutting enough calories to be equivalent to losing 1 pound a week. So just
Wow.
yeah, and again, this isn't you're not even changing your behaviors, you're just changing your food selection, or in this case, drink selection. And so again, water probably going to be the best choice, right? It's going to be a much
Yeah.
better alternative to Coke or Diet Coke. And so it's not, I'm not saying that Diet Coke or 0 calorie drinks are better or superior to water, but they are better than the sugary sweetened
Right.
alternative. There
Right.
tends to be
Right.
a,
Right.
and this is probably what you're alluding to, there tends to be a lot of fear around artificial sweeteners, saying
Yeah.
yeah, it messes with your gut microbiome, and it tricks your what does Lustig say, Robert Lustig? He says it tricks your tongue, your brain, into thinking it's getting something sweet, so therefore you start craving sweet things, which doesn't make sense,
Interesting. Okay.
because if you're drinking something that's sweet, then your body's like, okay, I'm getting my sweet kick, which
I
is
see.
yeah. And so there's no human studies to really support that aspartame or artificial sweeteners are bad for you. And if anything, especially with like Coke and Dr. Pepper, the caffeine content in there will be detrimental before the artificial sweetener. Not saying that the caffeine's bad, but if you just kept drinking enough to where either one of them becomes toxic, the caffeine content is going to be higher, or is going to get to you quicker than the artificial sweetener. So I'm a fan of
Okay.
artificial sweeteners. Do it sparingly, right? I'm not saying you need to drink
Mm-hmm.
a case of Diet Coke instead.
Yeah.
Instead of water. But like for me, I'll have like 1 or 2 0 calorie drinks, mostly with my meals. I'll have them just because it helps curb that craving. And for me personally, when I do drink that, it curbs that sweet tooth. So I'm not mindlessly
Mm-hmm.
eating Oreos and ice cream at the end of the night, which I would love to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'll do that at the end of the night, and that'll be my curbing my sweet tooth. And so I'm a big fan of artificial sweeteners in general, just in the 0 calorie drinks. I'm a big proponent of not drinking calories, with the only exception of being like a protein shake. And even then, there's probably better alternatives that you can eat instead of drink. Because I'd rather eat my calories than drink my calories.
I see. I see. I understand your point of view for sure. Just to go back to the point of Oreos, I remember when I was much younger, I used to dream of cookies at night, and I used
Nice.
to wake up like at 3 a.m. just to get a cookie with some milk. But
Nice.
this was way young. I mean, I'm talking probably high school days. If I do that now, I would definitely look much way different. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely this thing of sweet tooth. And what helped me was actually, my wife, she's a great cook, and she cooks great desserts. So those desserts are, a tad bit more healthier than, processed cookies and whatnot. So those things help me at least mitigate that. um, I'm interested in your opinion on Ozempic.
I admittedly am not super rehearsed on the literature, so I don't want to kind of overspeak. But
Okay, because I have no idea about it as well. I just know what it is. So I thought perhaps you could share whether it's something interesting or whether it's something people perhaps should avoid. I just have a friend, a friend of a friend who did use it, who saw good results. But again, I don't know whether it's something, good or not. So I thought to ask you for your opinion.
yeah, I definitely think it has a lot of benefits, but it's not without its risks, right? There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? And so I actually had a client who was on Ozempic, but he's off it now, not because I said so or anything like that. Obviously, listen to your doctor, and his doctor took him off of it, but he lost like 50 pounds, between
Oh,
that and like
oh
what
yeah,
we've been
that's
doing.
significant. Wow.
Yeah. And so the main risks that I've seen with Ozempic and Ozempic equivalents are a lot of times you lose muscle mass when you do lose the weight, which isn't ideal, but getting you down to a healthier weight is probably better than trying to spare as much muscle as possible. So the juice might be worth the squeeze there. And then I also have heard / seen that when you become off Ozempic and this goes for any diet, right? And you haven't changed your behaviors and you revert back to what you were doing before, you're going to regain that weight back plus some. And that's not unique to Ozempic, right?
Oh,
And
interesting.
so
Okay.
that's called weight rebounding. And so people think it's a miracle drug where you can just shoot yourself in the ass once a month, I think is what it is, once a week. Again, I don't really know. You can continue doing what you're doing and lose weight and be healthy, which is true to an extent, but you should also use that as a complement to improving your diet, improving your exercise, and let that be a jump start or a kickstart to being a healthier person and being on a healthier journey. And that can kind of help expedite the process in the beginning because you're not going to be on Ozempic long term, right? It's a short term thing. So yeah, that is my opinion, which I don't even think was a real opinion.
No, that's that. I think it's quite a good opinion. So at the end of the day, what you're saying is, no matter what, probably doing what we spoke about is a little bit better, right? So slowly changing your life and
Mhm.
slowly adding a little bit of exercise and incorporating healthier eating and whatnot is probably better than trying to do anything. As you said, there's no free lunch, so it's better not to inject yourself with anything. But again, I just wanted to know your opinion on that, and that was very very interesting to hear your side of things on that for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely
Um,
promise to it. But again, like I
mhm.
said, I don't want people to think it's a miracle.
Right, right, definitely. That we don't we don't want that for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but now I want to know. I want to talk about the importance of sleep. Right, that's something very important and often misunderstood. Really, gamers tend to game through the night multiple times. I definitely have done that many times, even probably not too long ago as well. But also, Brian Johnson famously said that he doesn't negotiate with his sleep. And he treats it with utmost importance, and he kind of goes to sleep exactly at the same time and wakes up exactly at the same time, and says that it's one of the most important things for his longevity. So could you talk about the importance of sleep, and what are some of tips and tricks to help improve it?
Yeah, yeah. And I would say I would agree with what Brian Johnson said, even though he is a massive extremist when it comes to biohacking,
Yeah, yeah,
longevity, and all that.
100%.
Uh,
I
um,
just took one small
yeah,
example.
exactly. But I would absolutely agree. I think sleep should be non-negotiable. Sleep should be that thing where you're like, I'm going to bed at exactly this minute every day, and I'm waking up at this minute every day. That is the ideal, right? But we're here to break that perfectionist mindset in general. And so just doing whatever you can to be on as a consistent as schedule as possible, plus or minus, I guess plus or minus as acutely as you can tune it, or as finely as you can tune it. But even if you're within like the hour, I go to bed between 10 and 11 p.m., for example. um, that can be beneficial. And a large part of it is dictated by when you have to wake up. And so people who work third
Hmm.
shift, they work overnight, graveyard, they're like, well, this is pointless for me because I'm getting home at 7 a.m. I'm like, well, no, you can just say I'm going to bed, maybe 9 a.m. to, I don't know, whatever, 4 p.m., right? That'll give
Yeah.
you 8 solid hours. And so you just have to be somewhat or as consistent as possible with that routine. And if you are working graveyard, it just makes it one step harder, but not impossible to be healthier. Where we falter is one more side quest, one more match, one more this, one more that, one more episode. And we keep
Yeah,
pushing
yeah,
that
yeah,
back,
yeah.
pushing that back, pushing that back.
One more scroll.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yes. Scrolls in
Yeah.
bed, screens in bed.
Yeah.
And so what you can do to help make that routine as consistent as possible is to prime your body beforehand by starting a nighttime routine. Think of it as when you go into a restaurant, you start being hungry, right? You go to a bar, you start feeling thirsty. There's those environmental cues that help prime your body and even on a hormonal level, start influencing how you're feeling. And you can do the same thing with sleep by doing simpler things like there's a 3-2-1 rule, which I think is again is a more of an ideal thing. don't eat 3 hours before bed. Don't work out heavily 2 hours before bed. I might have flipped those two, but no screens 1 hour before bed.
Oh,
Telling
that's a
somebody
tough
that they
one.
can't be on their phone or watch TV for an hour before bed, right? They would just be like,
Yeah.
just kill me now. And so
Yeah.
what you can do is just start with what works for you. And so that could be no screens 15 minutes before bed. Maybe you're reading in bed. I have a big rule of no screens in bed, because you want your sleep environment to be very conducive to sleep. So no TV in bed. We don't have a TV in the bedroom. Not that we're against it, but we have a living room, so we might as well utilize it, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
no TV in bed, no screens in bed. Sometimes I'll read in bed if I'm not fully asleep, but I try not to scrolling like on TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is. That is like the complete antithesis of calming down, because your brain is constantly getting
Yeah.
stimulated with different stimuli, and so it's getting
Yeah.
flooded
Yeah.
with not only the blue light but also the dopamine of one more scroll, one more scroll, one more scroll.
Yeah.
The next one will be the big one. The next one will be the hilarious one.
Yeah.
The next one's going to change my life. And so it's an
Yeah.
addiction, right?
Yeah.
It's like a gambler. It's the next pull of
It
the
is.
slot machine. It's the next hand. And so staying away from that, especially in bed, will help. I have noticed that, me personally, I do like to wind down with video games, but it's casual games like Pokemon, not Call of Duty where I'm rage quitting. And so tapering down, you want to taper down. You want to have a cooling environment in your room. In Fahrenheit, it'd be around 65 degrees if you can, and getting which I think is like 17 degrees Celsius.
Well, that's pretty cold.
Maybe 18, maybe
So,
19.
so that's so like, having it cool is beneficial, right?
Yeah, because your body temperature reduces when
Interesting.
you're
Okay.
winding down for sleep, and so you want the
Wow.
sleep environment to be conducive to that.
Wow.
Yeah, and so your heart rate also goes down too. So you want to do stuff that isn't going to increase your heart rate, like not working out heavily, not listening to fast-paced music, not watching a stress-inducing show, stuff that will wind you down. Like I said, casual gaming, I don't see a problem with. Those mindless shows, like I like
Listening
watching
to
Friends.
podcasts, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Listening to podcasts, um, watching like your
Okay.
your feel good show. For me, it's Friends, and
Oh
so
man, friends. Yeah, that's good.
and so having those activities that'll wind you down, and then also priming your sleep environment. So priming your body and then priming your environment to where no outside lights. If you do have outside lights, then put like a sleep mask on. I recently got one of those, and it's kind of been a game changer for me. And
Really,
yeah, yep. And
that's
then
interesting.
yeah,
Could I just really sorry, just quickly interrupt you? I've heard, some people say that having daylight wake you up is a good thing, and some people say, as you right now, that having complete darkness is beneficial. What side of the spectrum, or sorry, what side of this argument is more correct? Do you think, and
I
why?
yeah, I don't think they're either right or wrong, because
Okay.
um I think of it as an ideal sense. Our circadian rhythm is largely dictated by the sun, right? And so if we were in a perfect world, we would be winding down when sun goes down, and the sunlight would wake us up with the rooster on the fence post and all that,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
we put on our overalls and we start farming.
Farming. Yeah.
But like from my example, even when it's pitch black outside, I have street lights that shoot in through our window, and I have a cat
Got it.
that's a little sitting at my feet right now that likes to paw at the
Yeah.
blinds. So we have to keep the blinds open so she can see out the window. And so
I
we
see.
as a society are extremely removed from nature and the natural habitat, to where we probably can't wake up to the sun because we have streetlights blaring in our eyes all day, all night, if we do leave the windows open. And so there's that kind of ideal setting. Yes, perfect. No light pollution ever besides the sunlight. Cool. But if we need to, I would say I would much rather sleep in pitch black darkness than having blue light shine in my eyes through screens or like street posts.
Got it. So you got the mask, right? And you said that changed your life. Could you talk a little bit about that? How has that improved your sleep? Because I assume a lot of us, have lights, lighting their streets just outside the window. So, if we get these masks, what changes can we experience?
Yeah. Yeah. So I got mine because, like I said, we have to keep our blinds open for our
Yeah.
little kitty cat. And so I was kind of hesitant or skeptical on it because I was like, that's kind of stupid. I kind of had the toxic masculinity. Man, only women wear that. And even
Right.
my girlfriend's like, that's stupid. I'm like, okay. So we're kind of joking about it. But then I heard Dr. Peter Attia talk about it, and he's like, I use one that's like $8 on Amazon. I was like, okay, well, if he uses it, I can give it a try. It was worth the $8 gamble. Bought it, put it on, and you have to kind of get used to it. Like I keep mine pretty loose, so it does kind of move around a little bit, but for the most part, it covers my eyes. And it helps me a lot because, like, let's say even if I'm sleeping and I turn towards the window, that light's going to be shining in my eyes. And I wake up later than the sun. So there's like 3 hours, especially now that it's summer, maybe even 4 hours of daylight that I don't want anything to do with. And
Got
so
it.
I keep the mask on, and it stays as close to full
Okay.
darkness as possible. There's two things that I've noticed. A, you have to kind of get used to it. So give it a couple nights. What I would do is I would fall asleep as normal without it on. And then in the morning when I would wake up, because she likes to wake me up at 5 in the morning, so I have to feed her, which is also another thing. She's just a little princess. So at that time, it
Of
would be
course she
like,
is.
yeah, I would have to I'd be like awake, right? I'd be awake, and then the sunlight or street lights would be in my eyes. Then I'd put the mask on, and then I'd sleep for another 4 hours or so, and so that helped. And now I've been putting it on even when I first get to bed, because I've noticed that when I put the mask on, it is another thing to prime my body to go to sleep. Because, like I said, it completely blocks out. They're like horse blinders, right? Completely blocks out everything, and I don't have to worry about any visual stimulation at all. And it's a nice way for me to wind down. And even the almost like, it's not, I don't put them on tight, but like even the compression of having it on my face is just another stimulus to tell me it's time for sleep. So that's kind of something that was I found almost accidentally, because I
I
just
might
wanted it
have
to
to
block
try
out
that
the visual.
myself.
Yeah, like I said, Amazon, you buy the cheapest one. Good, better, best is probably the
Test
better
it out.
option. Yeah, they have better ones that like
Interesting. Okay.
really. They have like circles around your eyes, so that way your eyes aren't compressed. Because I have like a little bit of longer eyelashes, so my eyelashes do kind of flicker on it. And so they have ones that have like the more pockets, so your eyes are a little bit more
Yeah,
free.
a bit circular. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But those are like $30.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'll probably take your advice on that and see and check back with you
Yeah,
to tell you
absolutely.
how that's gonna go. Speaking about waking up early, I just have a quick question to get your opinion. Lately, all social media has been exploding with you got to wake up at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 a.m., cold plunges and just go
Yeah.
nuts. What are your thoughts on that? Because I'm not really, I'm not really understanding it fully, but yet again, I'm not fully disagreeing with it. So I just want to know your opinion.
Yeah, the old they call it the grind set, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I am not a fan of it. I guess as a blanket statement, I think if you need to wake up at 4 a.m., go outside, ground yourself by touching grass with your bare feet, jump in your cold plunge, do your red light therapy, do your hour of meditation
Yeah.
and 30 minutes of journaling to be productive, then you are essentially becoming, I don't want to say addicted, but those are becoming crutches, to where
I
what
see.
happens if on a day you can't do a cold plunge? You're just going to call in, you're just not going to be productive. And so you're priming your body to be reliant on these pseudo-science-esque practices, with the only exception of if you jump in a cold water, you're sure as hell going to be awake afterward. But like,
Yeah.
going outside, meditating, getting the right mindset and journaling and stuff, I think there's validity to it, but I don't think it's necessary. Alex Hormozy says the best morning routine you can do is shorten the gap from waking up to working as short as possible. And so I kind of follow that practice mostly because I'm a degenerate and I like to sleep in. But I wake up, I shower, and I get to work.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I wake up, I shower, I get to work in within 45 minutes. And so that's my morning routine, right? The shower wakes me up. It's not a cold shower by any stretch of the imagination. And so I just do that, and I'm productive for, the whole day. And you don't need to do all the expensive.
You know what I also think probably adheres to productivity. Um, Also, if you're doing something that you're passionate about, something that you want to get up in the morning to do,
Mhm.
I think that probably negates 50% of the problem. no matter what it is, even if you're working, a 9 to 5, or if you're an entrepreneur, or you're doing whatever, if you like what you're doing, or you're a freelancer, if you like what you do, I think you're going to wake up motivated to work,
Mhm.
you know. And I think there's certain truth to what you're saying, that okay, yeah, perhaps it's great to wake up in the morning and be fully awake by doing a cold plunge, but again, it's not there forever, right? As you said, perhaps one day you're going to skip it or whatnot, but work is there every day,
Mhm.
and you have to wake up and you have to work and you have to be motivated. So if you're doing something that you like, I think that's something that's going to motivate you. Or, for example, if you get early to get certain results in the gym, that motivates you as well. I'm going to wake up earlier, like a few hours earlier. I'm not saying at 5 a.m. I'm saying perhaps maybe at 6 or at 7. I'm going to quickly have a home workout and go to work. Already that, I think plays a large factor, because, like going to the gym, in my experience, and I've done that for a long, long time, like it's it's difficult. It's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. You have to, first of all, you have to know how to do it correctly,
Yeah.
and you have to like be certain that you're not going to injure yourself. And then you have to motivate you. You're like, okay, paying a coach would be great, personalized coach, but at the end of the day, it might be very expensive to have somebody there every single day with you training,
Mhm.
right? So you're going there alone. You have to motivate yourself. Okay, I'm going to do 8 reps today. Tomorrow I'm going to try 9, but then you might be like, you know what? Who cares? I'll just leave it at 7. But you got to go through it and kind of do the 9 or 10 reps. It's not an easy thing. So just to overcome that barrier, as soon as you overcome that barrier, and when you kind of dedicate yourself to a certain craft, that's when I think the motivation really kicks in. So sorry for my rant here. I'm
No, no, I
just
like it. I
yeah,
I I fully agree. I say progress is the best motivator, and that's kind of what you were
yeah,
saying. Once you break through
yeah,
that beginning slog, once you see progress, it helps. And to Joe Rogan, love him or hate him, whatever, he says that if you like, let's say you work out in the beginning of the day and like you just bust your ass, he said that's the hardest thing that you're going to do all day. Then the rest of the day looks easy, right? Where if you punish yourself, or I don't want to say punish, but push yourself to really challenge yourself in the beginning of the day, but then, 3 o'clock comes around, you got this really bad email or you got this pain in the ass meeting. Those things look much easier by comparison because you just, dug into the dirt for the last hour or for the first hour of the day and really pushing yourself, seeing what you're made of. And so I think that's a
absolutely.
slightly extreme. Like you don't have to punish yourself. You don't have to be like crawling out of the gym or dead to the world. But I definitely agree that getting a workout in and pushing yourself physically to whatever extent is slightly outside your comfort zone can make everything else feel a lot easier.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of training and whatnot, could you talk about some of the most common misconceptions when it comes to fitness, to training, so that if anybody's listening here and wants to start, so that they don't fall into those pitfalls and those same mistakes?
Yeah. Yeah. So again, it all kind of ties back to that all or nothing mindset, that perfectionist trap. They think they need to spend, 90 minutes in the gym. And I would say, I don't think I have a client doing more than an hour in the gym. Most of the time I'll have clients that say, I spend between 60 and 90 minutes in the gym. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do 45 minutes to start, see how that goes. And then just creating effective workouts with shorter rest time, increase the intensity while not spending 5 minutes scrolling through Instagram in between sets, keeps you on it and everything like that. And so that really helps me, or that really helps my clients, to where you really just kind of shorten the workouts down. You could be more effective because you're being more efficient. Because if you think about it, you only have 100% to give, right? And so that 100% could be stretched out between 2 hours. It could be stretched or condensed into 45 minutes. And we can do it in 45 to 60 minutes without it being just a complete high intense blast, but we do it in a way that is attainable and realistic. And I think that is the largest misconception around training per
Right.
se. Oh, that and that they need to go to the gym to see results. When in reality, starting off, we can do a whole lot with body weight. I like to say you can just stand up out of your desk behind your computer chair and do work.
Yeah.
Do work right there.
Yeah, the stuff that we spoke about a little earlier, have just a little walk and whatnot. Okay, got it. But that's a good one. That's a good one. I really agree to that because, well, I've had a coach that made me absolutely want to die in 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
it depends on the intensity. So you can be there for 2 hours, 3 hours, not do a lot. But as you said, if you do it efficiently, even an hour or 45 minutes is more than enough to train, be it at home or at the gym. I have an ongoing section here on the channel where my previous guest asks a question for my future guest, and if it's okay with you, I'd like to ask you a question for my previous guest.
Sure thing. Sure thing.
All right. So the question for my previous guest is,
I would say, when you're like super old in life, what type of game do you envision playing actively?
Yeah. Pokemon, 100%.
okay,
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one.
which game
Do I
exactly
have
from
to pick a
Pokemon?
generation?
Well, I mean, if you have to pick one specific one, let me just
Oh,
push you on that.
all right. Now you're making me think. My favorite generation is Gen 3.
Okay.
So I would say the specifically Alpha Sapphire. I'll say that specific one game. If I could only tie
Okay.
down, now one video game, I could definitely see myself playing that in my 80s, 100%.
I got you. I got you. That's very interesting. That's cool. It took me a while also to understand which game I would play, in my 80s and whatnot. It's a tough question. For you, it was easier than for me, but
Yep.
that's interesting. Speaking to the topic of Pokemon, what are your thoughts on Pal World? Did you get to play that?
Yeah, I did. I was 100% in the craze where I'm like, this is awesome. This is the best thing I've ever played. And then about
Yeah,
30 hours into it, I'm like, this is too grindy. Um, I'm
got
not
it.
I'm not the biggest fan of survival crafting games. And so once the novelty wore off and it became maintenance, I was like, okay, this is too much for me. And the
Got it.
world itself, although you can actually determine the density by the settings, the world itself had a lot of different pals. I felt like it was very barren in respect of everything else,
Right.
and so I thought it was cool. I'm not totally against it, like some diehard Pokemon fans are. I liked Pal World. If anything, I would love to see, because it looks like that they took Pokemon Legends Arceus and some of the crafting mechanics and everything that Legends Arceus had, which to me felt like an amazing game, but it was like a 65% complete game. They took that and then dialed it up to 11 and turned it into a crafting survival game. And if Nintendo / Game Freak looks at Pal World and looks at what they did with Legends Arceus and kind of blends the two, where they
Right.
create
Yeah.
a survival crafting light game, because it's meant for kids, but there's not as much maintenance, but you have to craft a lot more, and the Pokemon actually play a part, and you can build your own base and stuff like that. I think that would be
Yeah.
like the perfect blend of the two, to where it's not an MMO style survival crafting game, but it's also more complex than your typical Pokemon structure. I think that would be great. And I think if Pokemon um, takes and learns from Pal World, I think it'll be a huge plus. And so that's why I'm a fan
Right.
of Pal World. I hope it just kind of
Yeah.
it makes Pokemon / Game Freak / Nintendo step up their A game. Essentially, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I agree. I agree. I think Nintendo should take note and combine the two. And I think perhaps if they do, I think that's going to be quite the big game.
Yeah.
If I may ask you to ask a question for my future guest, please.
My question is,
Cool, cool. Okay, great, great. That's a great question. Thank you so much. So, lastly, we're coming to an end of our talk. Lastly, for those seeking personalized guidance, what criteria should gamers or anybody really consider when selecting an expert coach to support them in their health and wellness journey if they choose to do so?
yeah, absolutely. And we can kind of expand this to who you should follow as far as like social media
Hmm.
influencers, stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
so I think they should absolutely know what they're talking about, and they should absolutely, what do I want to say? They should know what they're talking about, and they shouldn't be that person that speaks in absolutes. Even though I just said they absolutely should not speak in absolutes. Uh, um, they should not be
Yeah,
the type of person that says carbs are bad for you, seed oils are bad for you, insert fear
yeah,
monger tactics here, because those types of people that use the absolutes are people who don't know what they're talking about. Because you talk to anybody in like the scientific field, the research, any professional, chances are the answer is always going to start with it depends, right? And so somebody who doesn't really speak in absolutes, somebody who's not trying to fear monger you into things, and somebody who, this is probably personal bias, somebody who's more middle of the road, right? Because I think that's the best approach. And so there's that. But I think more importantly is somebody who you really relate with, and so, or relate to. And so somebody who is speaking your language, somebody who really understands you, what you're going for. So for example, I target gamers, so I can use gaming verbiage like NPC, main character, that type of stuff, so I can speak to them. And I understand a lot of the struggles that gamers go through because I went through similar struggles. I'm not going to really appeal to your middle-aged single mom of 3 because A, by definition, that's not me. And B, I don't have kids, so I don't
Yeah.
really know that. And I don't really know the struggles of a mom. And so although I've worked with moms in the past and I'm not currently working with any mothers that I know of, it's not somebody that I can't help, but it's not somebody that I'm trying to relate to, and they're not going to relate with me as much, is because, like I said, my verbiage is a little bit different, and so unless they are a gamer, then it's not somebody who I'm trying to serve. And so there's a phrase in like the sales world: people buy coaches, not coaching, and so you have to relate on a semi deeper level with the person that you want to um, view as either a mentor by proxy through social media or whatever, articles, stuff like that, or say content in general, or an actual mentor where you're actually hiring them as a one-on-one coach. And so you have to really absolutely appreciate who they are and resonate with them, because that's just going to further enhance the buy-in. So when they say, hey, maybe we should work on tweaking up your protein, you can be like, yes, this guy has my bench, or this person has my best interest in heart, and so I'm going to listen to what they say, rather than that you always having that conflict saying, this person might be full of shit, but I'm going to give them a try, to where you're not going to get that buy-in. And so,
Got it. Yeah. That does make perfect sense. So yeah, take your time to analyze basically who you're looking at and who you're trying to hire.
yeah,
That's for sure. And
do,
definitely the part we're relating.
yeah, do your homework for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. 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 Jordan, thank you so much for talking with me today. So insightful, honestly speaking. And what's great is that, I can relate to everything that you're saying, because we have those two worlds in common, the world of sport and the world of gaming. Again, as I say to all my guests, I wish you nothing but the best in your journey. I hope that the number of your clients just keeps rising. And I really do hope that, the health problem, gets lowered, not only through you, but just generally. I want there to be awareness, in terms of food, in terms of, general activity and whatnot. And I think you're on a righteous path. That's so nice what you're doing, and especially for the gaming community. So thank you from me and from on behalf of the gaming community for what you're doing. Thank you for this talk. It was so interesting speaking with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No problem at all. And I appreciate the kind words. Like I said, I'm just trying to do my small part to change the world in my own way. And
Right.
I'm going to be continuing the good fight.